Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of The Gray Area on this Sunday. I'm Mr. Bennett with my partner, as always,
This is Sparta!
the host of Sparta, aka Peter, aka Panagiotis. Y'all see my brother? What's going on?
What is going on, everybody? This is going to be one of those nights. And I mean it in a good way, by the way. So, first of all,
Yeah, I'm definitely looking
do
forward to
not
this
say a word
conversation.
about
Yeah.
the Jets. I would choke slam you through this monitor. That's all I'm
Well,
gonna
I
say.
will say a word about my Steelers. This is Victory Sunday. We cooked those rat birds again. Right, we're now 8-1 in our last 9 games against the Ravens. And but as usual, you're gonna have all those guys in the DFW area that in the that Baltimore Washington area. They're gonna have an excuse, as they always do. Lamar can't beat us, and so we got the kryptonite for Mr. Jackson. And so again, I am very happy this evening. I'll have a very happy week as we go into another game on Thursday. So again, good to get a victory, and I can be happy here. So, but again, good to have all of you with us on this again this Victory Sunday. So we got in the chat. We got Milani. Thank you for joining us, my man Eric. Always a pleasure having you on with us. My brother Edward Gilbert's in the building tonight. Good to have you with us this evening. And Kateria, yes, yes, Kateria, we did it again, and we're riding pretty at first place. And also, the Chiefs had their first loss. So again, we might be in the running for the number one seed. Excuse me.
First of all, are you okay over there?
So I'm so excited, man. I've been
I can tell.
I was sort of screaming this afternoon.
Before
And
I introduce our guest, Katalia, I got a bone pick you, young lady. You never told us you have your own channel. So make sure you guys give her some love on her side too.
absolutely, absolutely. So
Yep.
yeah, so definitely want to support everyone in these spaces. So again, good to have you guys. As you can see, scrolling at the bottom of the screen, you see our Cash App. So again, any support that you give to us or to the Black Man Unfiltered Network, again, please support this channel. Again, Black Man Unfiltered Network gives you content 7 days a week, all different types of shows, all different types of options for you here. So support the network as you come in tonight. Make sure you hit the like button as you come in. And certainly supports the network, but not only here. Go to the Sparta HQ network. Hit the like button there as well, and make sure that you subscribe. And also the Angry Else network as well, and also to anybody's got something going on. But again, Sparta HQ network. Again, make sure you support that as well as we look to grow all these platforms in a collaborative fashion. And again, we just look forward to giving you great content. But I am certainly looking forward to this tonight. We always love it when we have people who take the time out spend a Sunday evening with us. And so tonight's going to be no exception to that. And so again, we our last interview we had was with again Michael Carrasquillo, or better was known as CQ, and certainly he's a part of the WTF Nation network. And so certainly he puts out a lot of great content, and certainly we have a good friend of his that's going to be on as well. Again, a fellow vet and whatnot, but he's gonna talk about that. But Peter, I'll turn it over to you to introduce your friend and our guest. And again, looking forward to this conversation tonight.
All right, this is gonna be a little longer intro than normal, so get ready, guys, because I've been prepared for this one. So our guest tonight, he is a Jedi. He is a husband. He is a man. He is half a Pop Culture Warriors co-host. He's known as Angry Elf. I know him as Robert. Let's get his ass up here right now.
Thanks for that info. Yes.
Yeah.
A Jedi. I never thought about that one, but I guess I am.
Yeah. But I have that.
How are you guys doing tonight?
Question.
Doing great. Doing great.
I gotta take
thank
a
you so much
question.
for joining us tonight.
I have asked you a question, a serious question before we move on. I'm taking this from CQ's side of it. What relationship do you have with the military?
What relationship do I have with the military? It's a complicated one. No, I am retired airborne infantry paratrooper. Did just over 20 years.
Wow.
And combat vet. In fact, mentioning CQ, CQ and I did our first 2 deployments together. There's a definite there's definite history between me and CQ all the way up to that fateful day in Afghanistan for CQ. But yes, we did a whole hell of a lot, and then we went our separate ways, and then all thanks to his show, we linked back up, and now we're if we're not seeing each other face to face, we're seeing each other a lot virtually. So it's awesome.
That is terrific.
Wow.
That is terrific.
So you
Absolutely.
mentioned about CQ a minute, and I don't get too focused on him because it's about you tonight. Were you
Yeah.
there when he got shot that day?
No. In fact, what ironically was I was back at our base on our fob, sick with malaria. I actually had 103 temperature that morning,
Oh
and
wow.
they,
Damn,
of
man.
course, I couldn't go. I couldn't go out on that mission, so they left me behind. Me and a couple other guys were left behind, and I was there when uh, one of our team leaders came running in and said, "Hey, there've been some guys seriously injured, and um, hey, Rob, CQ was one of them." And I remember I was all delirious, with a fever and all that stuff, but I ran up to the aid station, and they wouldn't let us in there, of course, but ran up there, and they told us, he was in a serious mess, and no, and there was nothing we could do other than just sit there and pray and hope for the best. And then I'll be honest with you, it was we called him and talked to him a couple months later. I think by the time we got to Walter Reed, it was around Christmas time when we called him, but I didn't see him again face to face until the summer of 2022.
Oh wow.
Wow. That
So
much time. Interesting.
yeah,
Interesting. Amazing, amazing. But let's back the story up a little bit. Want to learn a little
yeah,
bit more
sure.
about you. So again, where you're from, where'd you grow up, and what made you decide to join the military and become a paratrooper. So let's get a little background on you and flesh out the story a little bit.
Yeah. In other words, let's peel the curtains away. Let's
Yeah,
take everything.
let's
Let's
start
rip
at
the onions
at the
apart.
beginning.
Yeah.
So I was
Start from the beginning.
born.
So yeah, so I'm a Navy brat. My father
Mm.
was a naval aviator. He did a goose's job in the back seat of
Yeah. Top
those
Gun. Yeah.
F-14s.
Oh, that's
Yep.
kind of
Right.
cool.
Wow.
And so I got actually both my parents were in the Navy. My mom was a nurse, but I got moved around with my my dad's duffel bag from Dallas, where I was born, to everywhere between Orange Park, Florida, all the way up to Boston, Massachusetts, back
Wow.
and forth. Stopped off at the Pentagon for a couple years. So yeah, for most of my childhood, um, yeah, we didn't spend more than maybe 2-3 years in a
I mean, in
place.
one
Just how
place,
the
right?
military is, and
Right.
that's kind of why I have PTSD from packing up. Even even this week, getting ready to go on a family trip to see the in-laws. There'll be a point in time when I start getting frustrated just simply putting my clothes in a suitcase. I don't like
Wow.
packing, and
Wow. Yeah, I was about to ask you about that. So again, usually I know a lot of people who might be military children, military, they call them brats. I don't necessarily like the term, but
yeah.
certainly the ability to form friendships and whatnot, knowing that you're always kind of moving from place to place and whatnot. So again, what impact do you think that might have had on your childhood? And we already talked about the PTSD you're having from the moving, but what about your relationships? What kind of strain did
We,
that cause?
it's I'm that guy that's really horrible at keeping touch with somebody unless it's like active. So I've lost touch with plenty of friends and good friends too, just simply due to the fact that like I'm kind of I'm kind of a visual person. So if it's not up front and constantly in my face or on my mind, I'll forget about it. And yeah, I'm horrible, keeping touch. That's why I've got to like constantly call my parents on a weekly rotational basis. Otherwise, I'll forget. Um,
So in other
so
words, if you're not on a schedule calling people, you kind of forget sometimes.
yeah, yeah, and again, I've lost touch with a lot of good friends, just simply due to that. And even in today's age where social media is so easy, yeah, I'm horrible with that. but making friends is easy. Maintaining them, especially after you move away, yeah.
Yeah.
There's college friends of mine that I haven't spoken to in a decade and a half, pushing 2 decades, and
Wow.
you know, I mean, I know they're out there, and I know I ran into them. We'd have a great time, but yeah,
Right.
I don't actively, you know. But the other fact of it is, like, I'm not. We don't claim a town or a city or place as home. Home is
Mm-hmm.
where my family is. Home is where
Mm-hmm.
my wife and daughter are.
Mm-hmm.
Be it in North Carolina where we're at now, or if we moved again to someplace else, Florida, Italy. Home is home.
Right.
Um, you know, so yeah, it that I'm not hung up on a place.
Right, right. So it's almost it's like there's a there's so it's like there's a benefit to it, as well, in that the
Yeah,
fact that you don't have those attachments to, again, hometown or whatever, getting homesick. You have that fluidity to kind of move around. Now, do you
yeah.
find that, now you were certainly living through that, but do you find that impact on your wife and your daughter? Do you feel that sometimes they may need a sense of grounding that you may not have had, or do you are they adjusting, or are they of the same mindset that, if we got to go up, get up and move to another place, then we just roll with it?
Um, well, one of the reasons I retired was for my daughter. My daughter, um, she's 8, so she's only gone through one military move, but
Mm-hmm.
the other downside of that is me being gone so much. And that was like at the time I retired, I calculated and I missed approximately 2/3 of my daughter's life between
Wow.
deployments and being away because of things in the army. And um, that was the big driving force for me to get out. Plus,
Mm-hmm.
things were changing in the army, and I'd done my part for king and country, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As
Yeah.
far as my wife, I mean, she's she's an Air Force brat. So my father-in-law was in the Air Force. Her grandfather was in the Air Force, but because of my father-in-law's job, it was the exact opposite. So he stayed in Florida, North Florida, for the entirety of his career. So
Okay.
my
Okay.
wife grew up in the same house, in the same town, and in fact, my mother-in-law still lives in that same house. Um, and so it's really weird because we have the yin and the yang of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she desires to, move back to Florida. And it's like one day, once we figure out everything,
Mm-hmm.
and it is life. You got to wait until an opportunity presents itself.
Right. Right.
Um, and so, but we're currently in a happy place. We're between the grandparents and the family,
Mm-hmm.
almost equal distance. So
Right.
I count it as we're in a good spot.
Nice.
Now,
So
Very
Rob,
nice.
correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't that
yeah,
rare to be stationed at one place through the whole career in military, or is not?
yeah,
It's rare,
it is
correct?
it is rare, but my father-in-law was on AC-130s,
Hmm.
the
Right.
the C-130 gunships,
Right.
and they're only located in so many places. And so he lucked out that he was able to stay in Florida for, I believe, the entirety of his 27 years in. Um, so yeah, and but also the Air Force compared to the Army and the Navy and the Marine Corps is a different beast.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard of stories of Air Force folks staying put for a very long time. Um, Now I've also known Army guys that have spent 10 plus years in a duty station. When I was stationed in Italy, I knew quite a few folks that spent the better part of 10 years in Italy consistently,
Mm-hmm.
but they had to, you know, submit paperwork, sell their soul to the devil to stay in place. And then eventually life caught up with them, and the army said, okay, cool. 10 years is long enough. Goodbye. you're
Wow.
going to another place. So
Wow. I hear you. Now the
And
fact
that
that you
has me. Go ahead, go Paul, go ahead.
so the fact that you do come from a military family, with your father serving in the
mhm.
now was did you have ancestors before him? So just like multi generational, did it kind of start with your
Oh yeah,
yeah.
both my grandfathers served. My maternal grandfather, he was infantry, and he served in World War both my grandfathers World War II.
Mm-hmm.
My maternal grandfather was infantry, fought in battles such as the Battle of the Bulge and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
stuff like that.
Right.
Um, and how I ended up joining the military, of course, growing up with fighter jets and stuff at the forefront of what my dad did. Of course, I wanted to be the next Maverick,
Right. Right.
flying off a carrier deck and so through college and a couple years after college, I kept taking the naval flight exam and kept missing it by 2 points. Um,
Mm.
and I took it enough times that I think I took it. It was upwards to 6 times I took it over the course of
Mm.
several years, and just
Right.
kind of got to the point. It was like, okay, time to move on to something else. Marine Corps wasn't interested in anything but pilots, and I'm like, well, that's the same flight exam. I can't.
Yeah.
Okay, and right about that time, uh, my maternal grandfather passed away, and because of the fact that he had been in the army, I was like, all right, let me go down to the recruiter's office, and I wanted to come in as a infantry officer. My recruiter kind of sold me to enlist. I took it hook, line, and sinker, um, and I ended up, like I said, enlisting as airborne infantry, um, and the rest is history.
Wow. Wow. That's pretty
So
pretty
your experience in boot camp, how was it?
Oh, because I went to a military college. I went to Norwich University in Vermont,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the hazing that I received there was immense, especially in the first year. So by the time I got to Army boot camp, a lot of the stuff they did to me, um, I internally chuckled and said, "That's it. That's all you got."
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had one experience that was over the top, and the short version is uh, the short version is I had helped with serving of dinner chow. It took a little bit longer than that the drill sergeant wanted. I come running back to platoon. We're supposed to go on to the next training event, and it took me a little bit longer to get my gear on. He got frustrated and he decked me, and
Wow. Oh my
I
gosh.
ended up on my back, and I'm looking at my buddies to the left and right of me, and I'm like, "You gonna help me now or what?" And you know, got me up, but that drill sergeant was an angry, individual.
Yeah.
So
And a little
he,
fucker, in other words.
oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, this guy was. I've met quite a few people, especially in the army, that I wouldn't pee on their faces if they were on fire, and he's
Wow.
one of them. You
Wow.
know,
Wow. Wow. I
so
just want to go back
and
real
I
quick. You had, go ahead.
yeah.
Finish that.
No, I was gonna
Finish
say
that
when I
point. Yeah.
became a drill sergeant, that was one of the things that I attempted to not be like. But though I didn't want to be their buddies either, I wanted to be somebody that was, more of a mentor, hard mentor, but not a complete dickhead.
Wow, wow. I wanted to go back to a point since you said your dad was basically
Yeah.
playing the part of in from Top Gun. What was your impression or the impression of Navy guys at the time of Top Gun when it came out in terms of its accuracy, and even with the latest with the Maverick that came out a couple years ago? Because I know they tried to strive for that, but were guys like, yeah, this is not really how it is, or did they kind of nail it? What kind of inspiration do you
The,
think that was?
the first one, especially listening to my father, because he was, I mean, he was doing that at that time in '86 when that movie came out. Oh, talking to him years later. At the time, I thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Right, right.
Um, Talking to him years later, he told me about all the inaccuracies and all this stuff, and there's a lot of as time went on, and you spend more time looking at it, and hearing other stories, there's a lot of Hollywood in that movie. It was really churched up to really get that. And there's if you wanted accuracy, especially in the '80s, there's better movies. The Final Countdown,
Yeah, I remember
the
that
movie
one.
about
Yeah.
the aircraft carrier that goes back to just
Back to
before
World
Pearl
War
Harbor.
II.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah,
yeah.
great movie. Yeah.
But the second one, it's a lot closer to accuracy, especially because they were able to in the second one get some of those actors in the back seat of those Super Hornets and make it look like they were actually flying it. Where in the first one, I think who is it? Only maybe Anthony Edwards, the guy that played Goose, was the only one
Yeah.
that wouldn't get sick when they were flying around,
Right.
and
And
so
I
they
think
could.
Tom Cruise also because he flies jets in real life too.
Well, after his Tom Cruise, after his time with Top Gun, it inspired him to go become a pilot. But at the time, he wasn't. And I've seen some of the behind the scenes documentaries talking about it. Oh, he was impressed, but it was like, yeah, I can't keep my lunch down. So, but no, I will tell you this right now, Top Gun is by far both of those movies are some of my favorite movies. So, in fact, back here in my mess of a toy room right now,
Right.
I have a shrine to Top Gun with a couple of cool figures and stuff that I've collected.
Right. Yeah, I mean it was definitely, but I think even back then, in general, I don't see as much of the marketing, but the '80s when it came to marketing of the military, and India, good evening, and whatnot. I remember in the '70s it was the Army Be All You Can Be commercials,
Yeah.
and guys,
I remember those.
rappelling down mountains and going flying helicopters and stuff, and it was like it was such a cool thing. So it's like I think all of us at one point in time. Again, I'm post Vietnam, so I would have been too young for. I mean, too young for Vietnam, and certainly too, not old enough for future endeavors and whatnot. But I think all of us at some point we always had an idea
Yeah.
that was always like an option in the back of our minds. That yeah, we'll just join the military and whatnot. We'll do cool stuff and whatnot. So I just think the marketing I think was sort of brilliant back then. You don't see as much of it now. It's almost like
No.
okay, yeah, join the military now, and you'll work on computers and you'll do cyber anti-cyber and things of that nature. But it just lacks some of the I guess the masculine energy of those commercials, like back in the day. You talk about the paratrooping. That was one of my favorites. Guy paratroops and says, we do more before 6 a.m. than most people do all day.
Yep.
that was
Well,
just a very
it was all.
influential back then.
There was also in the '80s too. Around that same time, you had shows like GI Joe. You had movies like
Mm,
Rambo. Yes, the Top Gun was a 2-hour recruiting video for the
mm,
Navy.
yeah,
And you saw it years later. The Air Force came along with Iron Eagle,
yeah,
and then a few years later, there's other movies, focusing on the Army and trying to make it this is something you want to do type thing.
right,
Especially coming out of the '70s with the negative connotation from the Vietnam War. They're trying to,
right.
you know, but one of the great, I guess you could say, a subliminal influence was GI Joe. I loved GI Joe.
Yeah,
I you know Now I knew from a long, you know, pretty much since '86, once I figured out what my dad did, and they gave me the big F-14 GI Joe Sky Striker
hmm
around that same time. But
right,
I knew I wanted to be a fighter pilot. It just didn't
right,
work out. But
right,
by that point, and by the time I'd gotten to college, I had already pretty much made my mind up that I was going to join the military. And
hmm
then, of course, one thing that I haven't mentioned yet, that was another influence why I was so hell bent on joining, was this all the decision to finalize and actually enlist was all post 9/11.
hmm
Um,
hmm
and I was finishing up my college degree when 9/11 occurred, and it
hmm
was hurry up, get that piece of paper because I need to go get in, and I need to put a uniform on, and I need to go
hmm
fight. And there was no deterring me. I was
right,
going to go do bad things to bad guys.
hmm
Um,
hmm
in some way, shape, or form. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that event because in fact, there's a recruiting station literally a few doors down from my house, and I just
Mhm.
remember the energy around that time. Guys was just kind of rushing in just to enlist and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
But again, just going back to the '70s and '80s, like I said, I think the use of television and again the marketing, the shows, the movies. I think it was
Yep.
different. It was almost like I said, this is cool because again, we weren't after Vietnam, we weren't really involved in any major campaigns, whatnot that you needed people, and even the
No.
ads changed. So it's like you get the GI Bill. You get $17,500 for college. I remember those. I remember those ads, and it was also they promoted equality. It's like, hey, you can be a woman, you can join in, and you're not
Mhm.
might not be on the front lines, but these are things that you can do in the military. So I just thought the marketing of it, and even up through probably the 90s or the early 2000s with the Marines. I thought their
Mhm.
campaigns, that whole, the few, the proud, the Marines, and they had all these
Oh
things.
yeah.
One guy was like a knight in shining armor and stuff,
Yep.
and stuff like that. And then you point the sword up and the lightning strikes it, and then you transform. Like it was almost like you were a superhero. The
Oh
way
yeah.
they did that,
Back then,
and
understand that's what they were best power. Now, after 9/11, a lot of people, you didn't need any commercials. You were just, people were flocking. I mean, literally
Oh
lines
yeah.
out the door. And I think what's fascinating, you and CQ have a similar reason why you joined the service was because you wanted to go fuck people up who fucked us up, in other words. And,
Yeah.
a lot of people I know, like you're not the only one. I don't have like I have so many military friends I can't even count on one hand, and all of them have a similar reason. They went because 9/11. 9/11. That's it keeps coming up.
Yep.
So now you know that. Would you do the same thing? Now, if old Rob went back to the future with Dr. Brown and go talk to young Rob, would you say yes, join, or would you change something?
That's a loaded question. You
You know
know,
me, Rob. Come on now.
no, there would be no deterring me. You know, and because I came from, a lineage, maybe the difference would be a stick it out and um, you know, maybe enlist in the Navy and go, be part of the flight crew and then try to commission, a few years after enlisting, and do the whole kind of green to gold, or in this case, blue to gold type program, where I joined, and yes, I could have gone commissioned as an officer later on, and I started to realize things early on that I was like, no, if I commission, I'm not going to be doing the bang bang stuff a lot. No, I like shooting and blowing things up. I like
Mhm.
jumping out of airplanes. I like this. Nope. I'm going to stay enlisted. And I got to do stuff even into the later part of my career that technically, if I had commissioned, I would have been driving a desk, earlier. So I was like, no.
Right.
Um,
You like to be right. Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
You want to be in the field. You want to be, where you really think that you're making a difference
Oh
in
yeah.
that time.
And
Yeah.
it's funny
Plus,
because I hear that a lot from another service guys too who retired. Like
yeah.
maybe because they have injuries, but they know with the injuries they could have stayed by get a desk job instead. Of you go, Pete, I can't do that. I'm like, I'm not a guy who
Yeah.
goes, go get me coffee, go print this, do this. I want to blow shit up and shoot people. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Now, the flip side of it is my last 2 years in the Army, I ended up at the Army War College in Pennsylvania, and that's exactly what I did. I drove a desk, and what was ironic is I was your typical enlisted guy, typical senior NCO. You know, normally I'd have a huge chaw of Copenhagen in my lip. I've got either an energy drink or a cup of coffee. Every other word was an F bomb, and I went to the War College, and I couldn't do that, and it
Mhm.
really cleaned up my act. So when I retired at the end of that tour, I was they'd whipped me into being a civilian or being able to interact with civilians. Where if I had gotten out at my 18-year mark, I would have been that guy that couldn't get a job. Only
Wow.
because my attitude and my mannerisms. Now, granted, I'm a government contractor now, and I still work with soldiers. But I've cleaned up I mean, shoot. I mean, I got rid of using nicotine because I legitimately got bored of it.
Wow. Wow. So what was
You
the
know,
what was the more difficult, challenging transition for you in listening? I know you come from again a military background, but
right?
going in, you talked about the hazing that you had to go through and basically
Yeah,
being, kind of forged into this soldier
yeah.
or coming out and becoming a civilian. Because again, it seems like
Coming out,
different people, depending on your personality, it could be different. So coming out was definitely the harder
coming out,
transition than the
coming out.
boot camp, than the hazing, and all
Yep.
the other things that you had to deal with.
Coming out was really scary, because I was uncertain of the future. You know, I knew I was going to have, my retirement benefits. We had owned a house. Um, it was making sure I had a job, so my family wasn't going to suffer. And
Mm,
luck would have it. And I said this months and months before I retired. I'm going to trip, stumble, and fall into a job, and I literally, by the will of my wife, who found the job, but I tripped and stumbled and fell into my current job,
mm,
and it was it was a godsend because I technically for my last month on active duty, I was technically double dipping. I had the army paycheck coming in, and I had the government contractor paycheck coming in. Um,
mm,
I had done all most of the normal stuff that people who retire do. Getting prepared, learning how to write a resume, getting it prepped, learning how to do a job interview. But then, you know, the first couple months out of uniform, I was still on uh, terminal leave, so I had some leave, so the army's still paying me, but I'm applying for jobs and I'm not even getting a call back. And then this
mm.
one job my wife hands me is like, "Why? This sounds like you. Why don't you do that?" Next thing you know, I don't know, maybe less than a week later, I get a call back. Can you do a phone interview on this date? Yep. And maybe 10 days later, they're like, "You're hired." And I'm like,
Wow.
"Holy mackerel, I got a
Wow.
job."
Wow. Wow.
Was that like first
But
time you actually had to put an application in and then go in a job interview since you were a kid?
no, I worked in college and post college before I actually joined the military. I worked for Home Depot and a couple other places. So I'd been on job interviews, but not a serious job interview like this. And it'd been 20 years since I had applied for a job.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And so, and yeah, it is definitely scary. I think it's scarier
Mm-hmm.
um, coming out only because by this now everybody's story is going to be different, but
Sure.
I came in as a young dumb mid-20s-year-old guy with nothing other than myself to worry about. I didn't have a wife, didn't have kids at that point, so if I screwed this up, the only person that's going to suffer is me.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time I hit retirement from the army, well, if I screw this up, yeah, my wife's got a job, but we're a dual income family. If I screw
Mm-hmm.
this up,
Yeah.
not only do I have my wife, but I've got an 8-year-old, and no, no, we can't screw this up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Talk
And again,
about
that's the scary part for most people coming out of the service.
yeah,
indeed.
I know people who come out of the service like they're literally fresh out of that sign-up paper. They're still technically in uniform, and they see officer like, do I still salute them? Like they're frozen because they know they're just literally just got out minutes, and you at least had a backup plan. You had your wife to guide you. Listen, knucklehead, let's go this way, or
yeah,
I'm gonna slap you across the head, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
At least
eh,
she had your backbone. You had your wife to support you and guide
right,
you the right way. But my
Right.
yeah.
question I got for you, you said you have PTSD from packing. Your job is traveling. I'm like, it makes no
Oh
fucking
yeah.
sense. It
Well,
really.
no,
Hey,
no,
we face our fears here.
oh yeah, I no, I say that jokingly that I just don't like packing. But yes,
Mm.
I do travel for work. In fact, when we spoke last weekend, I was in a hotel room I was up in Aberdeen Proving Grounds in Maryland. Yeah, it stinks. It sucks traveling, going certain places. But then again, at the flip side, just over a year ago, they sent me to Germany for a little over a week. You
I
can't
remember
say
that.
no to Germany.
Mm.
I mean, as much as I'd like to go. I mean, I've been to Germany, before, but still, you can't say no to Germany. The food, the drink, just the difference in how Europe is compared to the United States.
Mhm.
It's it's well worth it.
Mhm.
If I got the phone call right now, hey, pack your bags. Tomorrow morning you got to fly, back to Europe, or I'm going to begrudgingly throw a bunch of stuff in the suitcase and go. But once you get there,
All right,
that
Rob,
that's
do me a favor. When you go,
yeah.
when you get a call, you're going to Greece. You call me first. I'll tell you where to go, where to eat, and what to do.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely,
I can't
absolutely.
promise your
I
wife will
mean,
be mad at you. That's a whole different story. That's
oh
a
no,
Robert problem, not my problem.
hey,
I hear you.
that's a beautiful part with this job that I have now. Was the first thing my program manager said to me was, "Hey, is your wife coming?" And I didn't even think about it. And yeah, I mean, we didn't. She didn't come. We didn't kind of plan this out, but we know that there's future trips in the in the ether, and one of them is going back to Italy, and she's already said, "Nope, you give me the dates, I'll be there. We're going to Italy. Nope, you're not going by yourself this time." So,
I hear you.
yep.
I heard you.
Smart woman, I
Yeah.
guess.
Oh yeah,
So I want to go back. There's so much content here that you're just dropping as this conversation is going on here. So
yeah,
you
absolutely.
talked about you talked about the again the transition coming out.
Hmm.
And the one thing that I've never quite understood, and I don't think I've ever gotten a straight answer from anyone who's not been in the military. Why do you
Right.
think it's so hard for a lot of military guys to find employment? Because I know that obviously you have a very specialized training that obviously may
Hmm.
not necessarily translate well into the public sector. I don't think Home Depot or anybody else hasn't asked for guys to jump out of airplanes or
No.
helicopters. We get that, but still, the discipline that you guys develop, the critical thinking and all those things, I would think, and I know there have been programs over
Right.
the years in place that have been put in place to try to hire ex-military, or that it should be a
Yeah.
smooth transition for military guys going out, and it seemed like that program's had mixed results over time. So why do you think it is so hard for a lot of vets to come out, besides just them missing the action or what have you, but just adapting to a civilian life or opportunities, trying to get jobs? Like you said, you had people putting in
Yeah.
interviews, applications, but no one's calling you back. So
Right.
you still think there's a stigma, as much as this country talks about how much we love our vets, but
Yeah.
are you hiring them? Are you putting them in positions where you can truly thank them by giving them opportunities to really do things? So talk about that a little bit. What do you think is going on
I
there?
think that's a multifaceted question with just as many answers. The part of it is some of these guys and gals, they're just so adamant about getting out of the military. They've had they're say they do one enlistment.
Mm-hmm.
They're so adamant. They hate the military so bad. They just want out. They don't care. They come out without a plan, or they have a lofty plan, like, I'm going to go to college. Okay, have you put in applications to go to colleges? Have you updated your SATs? Are you, have you, you know, are you ready? Do you have stuff lined up so you can go to college? Another problem with that is, and I'm guilty. I'm guilty because I didn't understand it. I didn't understand it until I was getting out.
Mm-hmm.
The transition assistance program, or TAPS as the Army calls it. A lot of leaders are kind of like, nah, you don't need to go do that, or nah, you can do that in the last couple of weeks of. And to be honest with you, the longer you stay in the military, the more time you need to spend transitioning. I started transitioning 2 years before I got out. Though it was baby steps at the beginning, and then it was towards the end, it was big leaps and bounds. But it took me, even just the aspect of filing my stuff for the VA, so I can get my VA compensation,
Mm-hmm.
or get the
Mm-hmm.
assessment to find out my VA compensation. That took me like 3-4 months alone just to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And there are guys that I've known have been gotten out of the Army in less than 90 days. There was a point in time where, um, especially when everybody was deploying to Iraq and Afghanistan, they would keep guys on until less than 90 days out and send them home. And by that point, these guys are just want that taste of freedom, to take the uniform off permanently. They're just, pencil whipping, pushing stuff through so they can get out, and they don't care. And then they come and realize that, well, crap, I screwed this up, or I didn't do this. Yeah, absolutely. If you wait on the process, if you don't process it early enough, you're gonna screw yourself. Um, and I've known people that I've got several friends who got out uh, roughly the same time I did that didn't file VA stuff. They're like, I'll file it later. And I'm like, yo, you're crazy. Like, even if you don't get 100%, you get 90%, whatever it is, 60, 50, as long as the VA recognizes, at least to a degree, that you had these ailments, these problems that are service connected, years down the line, you have problems. They're going to take care of you. Simple stuff like, oh, hey, from doing all those push-ups, I have this pain in my shoulder. And the VA goes, okay, that's 10%. But then 10, 15 years later, oh, I can't raise my shoulder, up above, shoulder height. The VA goes in and goes, oh, yeah, it's from all those push-ups. Oh, yeah, hey, we'll fix it for you for free. That's one thing. In fact, when I hear somebody saying, oh, yeah, I'm about to do the retirement process, I'm like, you need to start transitioning now. You need to start making sure your medical records are up to date now. And don't wait. Start building the stuff. And then when they tell you it's time for you to submit this packet or this paperwork, submit it on time so everything gets processed. And that's what I harped on with myself as I was getting out. And everything everything for the most part happened when it was supposed to happen. And yeah, I transitioned with very few hiccups. It wasn't perfect, but it was the Army, so it's not going to be perfect.
Right. Can we bring back Mandrell's comment? Because again, I still want to go over this idea about the hiring. And I know one thing that Mandrell talked about was how employers look at vets. That there's a potential to look at
Before we
you
do that,
as a mental health risk. Yeah.
as Bossman's doing, Mandrell, reach out to me. We'll get you the information you need to who you need to talk to about VA stuff, because I believe CQ actually works for the VA. I'm not mistaken. He can guide you a lot better. Yeah, I'm right. Okay. Yeah, CQ can guide you a lot better about VA stuff. I'm not sure. Rob tonight he can guide. Can you help him with that stuff, Robert, or is more CQ department?
I would. I'll be honest with you. With the VA stuff, especially if it's submitting a claim or something like that, if you have it, depending on how long it's been since you got out, your best bet maybe go talk to your local VFW. They've got folks down there that are impartial that'll help you. If not, go find your local VSO that and talk to them. The problem is, once you're a year past your exit from the military, um, creating that connection, that proof that that injury is service related becomes a lot more complex. And I did not deal with that. I made sure all my stuff was done before I took off the uniform. But yeah, it's talking to somebody like CQ. CQ may know some people that know the proper way to do stuff, but I wouldn't, other than giving you advice on like go early, go often type stuff, or do things prior to. I'm unfortunately I'm not the guy to talk to.
Yeah. But let's deal with this comment here from Indra, who's
Sure.
also again former military as well. So
Right.
the perspective, the perspective that outside employers, I never saw that. I remember I went to college with guys who were ex-military, and you could tell the maturity level was, not to mention that they were a bit older, but not that much older. I mean, they might have been like 23, 24, where we might have been 18, 19, 20. but you could just tell that how they spoke, how they
Mhm.
conducted themselves in class. It was like, why wouldn't you want to hire a vet if I can get,
Right.
but there seems to be a perception out there that again, they think that we're going to be a mental health problem. Is that a reality? Is that something that you've seen? Is that what a lot of vets talk about, or is that more just a misconception that gets propagated?
Well, again, I kind of cheated in the way I got out of the military and came into a job.
Mhm.
I'm a government contractor, and the company I work for, I think, is they hire or have hired like 60% of retired military. But the small team I work with, out of the six of us, five of us are retired, are Army guys.
Mhm.
All of us combat arms, so we're all cut from the same cloth, if you will. But that see that the problem of it is it, and realistically, if you've got proof, I'm fairly certain that's a form of discrimination.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
Yep.
but you absolutely hit it on the head, Mr. Bennett. Like, why would you not want a retired or even a former military service member? Because the discipline that's instilled, the
Yeah.
work ethic that's instilled. Um, I mean, I still have the problem of if you tell me to meet you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for whatever coffee, be there for a meeting, whatever. It's still ingrained in me. I'm showing up at 8:45.
Right. Right. Right.
Or I'm endeavoring to show up at 8:45.
Mhm.
And so um, you know, it's ingrained. And I'm gonna show up if I know I'm gonna be there for through lunchtime. I'm probably bringing food. I'm going to have um, I'm gonna pretty much, if you tell me what I need to bring, if you tell
Mhm.
me you need to come with pen and paper and prepare to write down stuff, I'm gonna
Mhm.
come with a bag in my back, and I'm gonna have water and a pencil and a paper and stuff
Mhm.
and ready to go. And I
Right.
know to turn my phone on silent, so I know I'm not disturbing the reason that we're there. And you're gonna have my full attention. And if I don't know your name, I'm gonna call you sir or ma'am. Yeah, I know that's a loaded statement in this day and age, but you know, I'm gonna call, or I'm gonna address you appropriately. Um, you know, and for the most part, you're gonna have somebody that's gonna be respectful and hard worker. And you know, the thing of it is, if you have somebody that's got issues, hopefully they're getting taken care of.
Mhm.
And again, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of programs nowadays. You just got to be connected to it with the VA, other organizations like Wounded Warrior. I know CQ is
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
he is well
We talked about
endowed
that.
in
Yeah.
this in Wounded Warrior. Oh yeah,
Mhm.
that's why
Yeah,
he's
he's big.
he's got all
He
these.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sponsors and stuff like that. Yeah, they help him out and everything. I know every conversation I had with him is something like recently he went to the White House and met the president and stuff. And I go to him like,
Mhm.
seriously, dude, well, why don't you ask him for a favor or something? But like he always goes to these events because the Winter Warrior helped him before the WFT
Yeah.
Nation, before everything. I remember how many times he actually, great example. We were both at a New York Comic Con at the
Mhm.
same time. And because I went to the for the Winter Warrior Project booth, I go, "Hey, is Mike around?" He goes, "Who's Mike?" I'm
Right.
like, "What?" And I tried to text him, and just communication was off with us. He goes, "Oh, dude, you should ask me CQ. Everybody knows me as CQ." Like, I know he has big goofy Mike. I don't know anything else. But again, now I call him CQ like everybody else does because I have it. But my point trying to get to is he's very in the Winter Warrior
Yeah,
Project. Yeah, he was working for them at one time, wasn't he? I think.
I think so. But but yeah, and especially from the dark place that CQ is at. I mean, he's told me these stories since, but the dark place that CQ is at um, after he got injured, that's how he came back. And he's not 100% repaired, but I'll tell you that CQ is, he's there. But that's how he came back from that dark place, was organizations like Wounded Warrior and, helped him. They help. I mean, I know how he got into his comedian excuse me, stand-up comedian stuff,
Exactly. Yep.
was comic stuff, was Wounded Warrior, and
Mhm.
they connected him and kind of taught him how to do stand-up comic stuff, and he, for the longest time, he had a skit or his whatever he did it, open mic nights or whatever. He told me all about this stuff. It was really interesting stuff.
Mhm. Yeah.
But it, and that's the one thing I I'll tell you. For me, I mean, I've been shot. Yes, I do have a Purple Heart and all that. Um, I'm thankful that I came back pretty much in one piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that the elevator doesn't go all the way to the top floor, but I'm still able. Yeah, and I saw, to go back to your comment, Mr. Bennett, about or your question about why people have such a hard time transitioning out. Bossman said yes. A lot of kids come in at 18, 19 years old, straight out of high school.
Mhm.
Maybe they had a job at McDonald's or something like that.
Right.
Then they do 5, 10, 20 years in the military, and they don't know how to get a job. They didn't, if they went and got hired at McDonald's, they're probably asked, "Can you be here on time every day that we schedule you?" "Yes, sir."
Mhm.
And that was the extent of their job interview.
Right. Right.
Um,
Right.
so they don't know.
But that's but that's
They spent.
that's always confused me because that's always been part of the marketing. It's like you go in as a boy and
Mhm.
we'll make you into a man. At least, like I said,
Oh
my
yeah,
my program from the 70s and 80s, that was the pitch. You
yeah,
give us your son or daughter, and we'll bring when they come out or whatever, they'll be able to conquer the world, and it made sense because how many people in leadership, in politics, or corporations may have come from like a military background or something like that, and say,
right.
see, we mold people, but it seems like that seems to be more the exception than the rule.
Mhm.
You have these folks who are coming out who never lived an independent life, but I thought that's part of what the military was supposed to do, was to teach you to some extent. I know you got to function as a unit, and I know there's a chain of
Oh, yeah.
command, and I know those things are there. But again, I thought there was also another component where you had to be able to think creatively and problem solve and do things independently within your unit as well. So maybe maybe that I'm a little bit confused on that, but I never quite
I
got
mean,
that. How do you have that balance there between, yes, you need followers, but these guys, you need to be able to improvise, adapt, and all those things that they say that a military person is supposed to do.
it does come in time, but it's you're not going to, especially those individuals that only do one enlistment, one term, and they do maybe 3 or 4 years. They may not get to the point where they become a leader and start getting taught those leadership skills. And a lot of folks, their first couple years, they have those leaders that have to, quote unquote, babysit them. I mean, like I said earlier, I was a drill sergeant. I had trainees that that had never done laundry. We had to teach them how to do laundry. Oh
Mm.
yeah, or or um, some of them, we had to go teach them some like basic stuff that they should have learned growing up from their parents, and they didn't learn it. Some kids didn't know how to bathe. Some kids didn't know how to properly shave, and we had to
Mhm.
go back and fix that. Um, you'd be surprised some of the stuff that, but
You
you'd
do
be
not
surprised
say
some of the.
shave on this channel.
That is a bit, yeah.
Hey,
But
it's part of the
but again,
military life.
I thought that was part of the program. Especially back
Yeah,
then, that you could go in. I think at 17. I think I don't know what it is
you
now, but
It depends on
you
when
can
year you
come
were
in
born. I
I'm
think
like I said, when I was growing up, I thought it was like 17 you could
with a
enlist, and
waiver
I'm
from mom and dad. Yes.
correct. And like I said,
Yep.
you didn't have to know anything. We'll teach you how
Yep.
to do everything. It's how to put on a tie, how to do. Again,
Yep.
you give us this raw material, and we'll give you back this highly functional person who can dominate in any corporate, any professional career. That was the appeal. Like I said, a lot of us were like, if it got to, if we couldn't get, especially if college wasn't going to be a track for us, or we didn't think we have options. The military was always a backdoor. It was like, we never worried about what our futures were going to be, because it's like that was always our ace in the hole. We can always join the military if these things, and we'll get what we need to get. So when I'm hearing this, it's like I said, it's a little bit of an eye opener to me.
Well, it is. And go ahead, Pete.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Rob, but I feel like from talking to all these guys coming out is what you said earlier. Your leadership is like, you don't need that. You don't give a shit. After you're out, that's not their problem anymore. You're flying solo. And that's where I think we as civilians and as Americans and everything are doing a wrong thing. We should have a better program, better CAP program saying, hey, let's put this guy into a last year, like you say, you're coming out, you said your last 2 years, those last 2 years, let's get you in a role to teach you a different job skill, maybe HR, a chef, or stuff like that. But guess what? Most of them don't. Very few, and I can count on literally one hand out of 40 people I know who came out who actually did that program.
But the Army does have programs. There's actually a program. Now, granted, it's voluntary. You don't have to do it. I didn't do it, but there is a program called Skill Bridge, and the long and short of it is your last couple of months in the Army, you can go on an internship. So you're technically still getting paid by the Army. You're out. You no longer have to report to your unit, but you're still receiving that Army paycheck. You go to this internship, and it can last anywhere from a couple months upwards to 6. And they either have to give you one of three things coming out of it: either a guaranteed job interview, a guaranteed job, or a certification coming out of it. So, for instance, say you want to be a truck driver, you can go do the truck driving course, get your what do they call it, a CDL license.
CDL, yeah.
Yep. And you could, in theory, by doing that, day one outside of the Army, go apply for a trucking driving job and get hired because you have that license. And I know a friend of mine. He went to go did the internship on a I think it was Texas oil fields. They gave him all the certifications, everything he needed, and then day one out of the Army, his day one of his new job out on the oil fields, being I think he was a safety inspector or whatever. But they taught him how to do that job during that internship, and he had a guaranteed
But you're
job.
saying but you're saying that he had to volunteer for that. So it seems like there are pieces both within the military itself that help guys with transition or career path or what have you, and then you have organizations like the Wounded Warriors, whatnot, that try to help people from the outside, private or whatnot. But so is a lot of it is just a lot of guys aren't plugged in, or is that information widely available, or is there, because it seems like there's help, but like anything else, you got to know where to look, and you need the and people with the information to share it.
Part of it is going through the transition assistance program as you get out of the military. Go, because they do talk about a lot of the stuff. There's several classes, and they're actually required to get out. And now you can kind of push through it. You can kind of like pencil whip it, not pay attention. There's no, test at the end or anything like that. So you can go show up, sit in the back of the classroom, and play on your phone the entire time and not pay attention. And then kind of, you get as much as you put in out of it. So if you're going to give it 0, you're going to get 0 from it. But if you put in 80-90% of your effort, like what I did getting out, I got, and I also think too, the other problem is, I think it also depends on where you transition out of the Army from, or out of the military from. If you transition out of the military from a larger installation, you're going to be a number, versus where I transitioned out. It was a smaller installation. I was a name. They knew me by name. In fact, I went I went kicking, screaming to the War College. I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay here at Fort Bragg, now known as Fort Liberty, North Carolina. And the Army said, "Nope, not absolutely not. You're going to the War College. Shut up and color."
Mhm.
And I was angry up there for probably the first year.
Mhm.
Um, and then then my tune started to change. I think that the date that it changed was August of 2021, when we were withdrawing from Afghanistan. The unit that went to from the 82nd that went to Karzai International Airport,
Mhm. Yeah.
that was the unit I just came from. And
Oh
if I
wow.
had gotten what I wanted, I would have been back in Afghanistan for another month or so.
Wow.
And that was when I realized I need to shut up and
All
and
things work out for the best.
yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
but yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of my military life in a nutshell.
I hear you. I hear. Well, let's make a transition then, because you, and
Sure.
again, it's a common theme when we talk to Michael on the last show. You talk about, you've been married for some time and have a family.
Yeah.
So, talk about that a little bit. How'd you meet your wife? Well, first of all, what kind of person were you before you met your wife? Okay, were you one of
Oh, I
these
was
that
in.
just guys out there just playing the field and whatnot? How'd you meet her? How'd that come together? And
I,
what would make her marry just GI Joe paratrooper guy coming out? What was the
And
give us
Jedi. Don't forget about the Jedi part.
the Jedi part? Yeah. So give us
um.
the clean version of how
Oh, I
that
gotta hear
all that came
this.
together.
So I was down in Destin, Florida. I was actually stationed at Eglin Air Force Base. I
Hmm.
was playing the role of the bad guy for the Florida Phaser Ranger School. Um, so I was the type, yeah, I was the type of guy that was out there at the bars, uh, drinking when I could. The dangerous part about it was last call in Destin, Florida is 4 a.m.
Mm.
and usually we had to be at work between 5:30 and 6.
Oh my
So
gosh, you were closing
there,
the place
there,
down.
oh yeah, there were plenty of times. And so yeah, and it the problem with Destin, Florida, for the most part, it's a tourist area. People come
Mhm.
see the sugar sands, beach, sugar colored beaches and the emerald green oceans. And so you meet somebody, but for the most part, they're usually there for about 5, 7 days, and they're going back to their lives. Um, but no, so I kind of got bored with dealing with that type of dating environment. So yeah, I signed up for a dating service, and this was not one of your yeah, but
Wow.
this was not one of your kind of like online dating thing. This was a local dating service. It was when I went in to do the face-to-face interview, it was like a job interview. They did a background check. They did a financial background check on you. I think I did a 2, maybe 3-hour interview getting asked this question, that question. And so, uh, in early May of 2009, I get matched up with, my wife, Michelle. We went on a date. It was supposed to be just a quick, simple Starbucks, date, meet, talk for an hour or so, and then like, "All right,
Mm.
cool, thanks." Because my buddy and I were gonna have a party at my apartment that night.
Mm.
Well, 3, maybe 4 hours later, I go, "Oh, hey, we gotta cut this short. I gotta go back and get ready for a party." And, my future wife at the time was like, "Yeah, sure," and we said goodbye. It was great. "I'll call you." Race back. My buddy's like, "Where the have you been? We gotta set
Mhm.
this up." We threw the party. And then a couple weeks go by. My wife and I are still dating. And then one night we're trying to. She asks me, 'cause she knew I was in the military. She goes, "How much longer do you have here?" And I'm like, that's a question that needs to be answered face to face. because the kicker was I already had orders taking me from Florida to Italy.
Wow.
And I was leaving. This was, like I said, May. My report date was, I think, July. So I had a couple months left. So one Friday night, I tell her that face to face. Okay, maybe another week or so go by, and then we're at a pirate festival known as the Billy Bowlegs Festival, and we're sitting there on the side of the Gulf Coast trying to figure this out. And I'm like, well, I can take leave here, and I can come see you here, and I'll have this time and that time. And she looks at me and she goes, "Why don't we just get married?"
Wow.
We'd known each other 5 weeks at that point.
She dropped the big
And
joker on you right there, just like boom.
oh yeah. And so that was a Friday. Monday morning at about 8 o'clock in the morning, maybe it was 9 o'clock. We were in the courthouse getting married, and we had to jump through some hoops to make it happen. But yep,
So
that
how
so
hard
she
was it
came
to
to
pick up
you
your
to
mouth off the
Italy.
floor?
well, what, you're both asking me a question.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
How hard is it to pick up your mouth off the floor when she's told you this?
Oh, she claims that entire weekend I was scared shitless. She claims that. It was the easiest yet hardest decision to make, and probably the best decision I made. So no, it was. Yeah, I may have been kind of like whoa, but there was at
So
no
was
point
this
that I
like
ever.
love at first sight? Was it fireworks? Was it like did she knew?
Pretty
Did
much,
she?
yeah.
That she said she knew right away. All right, this is him, or did you know that was her, or what was? Because 5 weeks,
Yeah.
is pretty. That's a pretty rapid turnaround.
I think for her, it was Memorial Day weekend because I threw another party at my apartment. She got really drunk, got sick as we went to bed. She got sick in the bed. I put her in the bathtub, cleaned her up. I did a poor job of washing her hair, but I washed her hair, did the laundry or started to do laundry, got us back into bed. She wakes up the next morning wrapped up in my bathrobe on what is wrong with my hair. And I roll over and go, "Oh yeah, you puked in the bed last night. It's all good. Everything's taken care of, but you puked." And she pretty much knew at that point, like, yep, a guy that's going to be one to make an attempt to clean me up and take care of me and put me back to bed. And nothing ill happened from that. Yeah. And so, I mean, the other piece of it too for me was that same weekend, my sister was in town visiting me, and she met, my future wife. And one of the things that resonated with me was she said to me, "Don't screw this up. You've got somebody special here. Don't screw that up." And so, but
Wow.
yeah,
Even though she got drunk that
oh yeah,
later on,
you know
you
how many
still did
times the two of us have been drunk and done stupid stuff? Oh God,
That is amazing. See, I mean, what I'm liking about you and CQ, because again, we're in these spaces, and certainly in the BMU network, we've talked so much about relationships and how hard it is for people to get together. And from listening to your story just now, from listening to CQ's story and whatnot, it's not that complicated. I mean, I always thought people make decisions and stick to them, and people just like, oh, well, you got have a million criteria and whatnot. And it was just in this case here, look, if he's good enough to do that to me, then look, I'm keeping him. Or your sister's just putting out that year, hey, don't screw this up. And then you kind of go on with it. But I think people are so afraid to just make a decision.
Oh yeah,
and follow through. And it's just like people it's just, I don't have any hair left, so I can't pull any more hair out. But I'm in marriage season number 28. My wife and I have been married 27 years, going on 28th year.
Yeah.
And I thought our courtship was pretty short. Again, we met, for a time we went out. I knew I was going to marry after 2 months. And we got married like 6 months later, and everyone there is thinking, it's like, man, that's, you guys move so fast. I can't imagine getting married in such a short period of time. But again, we made a decision that, look, this is what we want, and let's go for it. And but so many people, you spend years just, with the pros, and you're not supposed to be with them. And so that's always been like a frustrating thing for when I hear all these conversations about relationships or whatnot. It's like,
Yeah.
just go ahead and do it, you know?
Yeah. And some of the other aspect of it, the amazing part was, so in, like I said, in July, I went back to Italy.
Mm-hmm.
I had to file the paperwork so that she could come over on the Army's
Right.
dime. So
Right.
she comes over in late August. Um, and then a week later, after she showed up in Italy, I went to Germany for several weeks for training. A couple months after that, I go to Afghanistan. She's in Italy still.
Mm-hmm.
Her mom was convinced that um, at some point during my deployment, she was going to give up and come home. She did go home to visit over the summer, but she got a job. She made a life for herself. There were a couple other crazy things that happened. She was forced to move in Italy from our
Mm-hmm.
first apartment to our second apartment there,
Mm-hmm.
not by herself, but without my support because I was in
Mm-hmm.
Afghanistan.
Right.
And then, when we redeployed, there she was right there, not, and the running joke was, well, if she's not there or I upset her before I get home, from Afghanistan, I don't know where we live now. So I
Right.
got to keep her happy, you know, but,
Right.
you know, but she's been through all the fun with the Army, the thick and thin. I mean,
The
she
thick
stayed
and the
with me.
thin.
In fact, I still don't know. I can't remember which came first, finding out that we were going to have our daughter or finding out that I was going to become a drill sergeant.
Mm.
And I got to Fort Benning to be a drill sergeant. Told my leadership as I show up, like, hell yeah, by the way, my wife is like 8.5-ish months pregnant. And they're like, oh, great. Uh, but yeah, my daughter was born. And then unfortunately, my wife basically became a single mother for 2 years
Mm-hmm.
because I was working 6.5 days a week, from sun up to sundown. And in fact, some nights I didn't even come home because,
Right.
the way the job worked. And so, and that was another reason why when I got to the point that, hey, I'm reaching 20 years, it's time for me to say goodbye because it's time for me to, be at home, spend not just time with my daughter, but time with my wife.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know,
And again, the fact that she sacrificed so much. I mean, both of you, obviously
yeah,
sacrificed. And but again, you guys were able to go through that time of testing and came out on the other side to where you said at the beginning of the show that you guys are, in a good place where you're at. And
yeah,
I just love that. I love when I hear couples go through, especially early on, when you go through some of those adversities early on, you're not
yeah,
waiting for everything to be perfect before you make a decision. Because I find that people who make, I forget what it's called, if you make quick decisions but you stick to them is better than taking
mhm.
forever to making this decision and then quitting it as soon as you as soon as you made the decision.
I I agree with you. I use the analogy that it was like jumping through the paratroop door
Patrick,
into
yeah,
the
yeah.
at night. You don't know what
Mm-hmm.
you're getting yourself into, but you've already committed to exiting that aircraft,
Mm-hmm.
and you know you can't stop. And if you go out the airplane,
Do
you
over.
pray that your parachute. Oh yeah, there's absolutely no do over.
See, Rob,
You
I
pray that
always
your
said,
parachute opens and everything works out.
like, you're not the only person I know in the service who has a wife and everything. You got two kind of type of women: a woman who can deal with it, or a woman who cannot
Yep.
deal with it. And you got very lucky because she's also has the military background. Like, okay, I know what I'm walking into at least. And
Yeah.
she knew, your job. It could be you'd be deployed for 15, 18 months to who knows where in a
Right.
combat zone. Who knows what she's gonna get back sometimes. And you got other women who are like, listen, I can't deal with this. I'm done.
Yeah.
And you got lucky. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing of it is, especially in Italy, and I'd say this, that like she went over to Italy as a 23-year-old girl and left as a 27, 28-year-old woman. Like Italy, especially seeing the world, running up and down through Europe, um, you know, dealing with some of the craziness that we dealt with, especially from me, from my side of it, I brought 90% of the crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but she, rolled with the punches. And yeah, I mean, I'm fairly certain that there's days she's plotting to kill me. Especially when you binge watch CSI and what are those other, those shows. Oh, she knows this. Don't worry. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying anything new.
Mhm.
But no, I know for the fact that, it's yeah.
If I see her
This
coming up the stairs, behind you with a knife, I know why now.
like I said, I've said this before. This is nothing. I'm not saying anything new. She leaves her shoes all over the place, and I, in the middle of the night, I trip and stumble over them, and I'm like, she's plotting to kill me, and I
Now,
have
let
to
me ask you
tell her
another
now.
question for you.
Yeah, but you're military,
Is
so you should be used to finding booby traps and all those kind of things. You should be able to
Well,
call everybody to
I told her she should have, successfully offed me before I took off the uniform. I was worth a lot more then. Now I'm not worth that much. You're stuck with me.
There you go. There you go. There it goes. That works.
Question for you now. When you were a drill sergeant, how was that for you? Was it a great job, or you like get me
No,
out of this assignment as fast as fucking possible? Give
no.
me a little data on that.
It was so I volunteered um to be a drill. It was it really basically came down to leadership. The leadership that I had, because I was under two different sets of leadership during that time. My first set was great. Um because my commander had been a drill sergeant before he became a commissioned officer, so he knew the gig. And then my first sergeant, though he'd never been a drill sergeant, he had been an instructor for the last, I don't know, at that point, probably last 5, 6 years. And so he knew the life, um, so they took care of us. The commander was the one that when we would basically when the day was over and done with, was going, why are the drill sergeants still here? Go home now. Because all of us
Mhm.
had families.
Mhm.
And then what was it, 6, 8 months later, I got transitioned to a different set of leadership, and they had basically a 180-degree opinion of how a drill sergeant should be. Their thought process is what we should be there 24/7, 7 days
Mhm.
a week, readily available to train these kids. And so, yeah, but I mean, the good thing was I had I had a whole bunch of kids to take out my anger and aggression on every single day.
Right.
You know,
And it's
all it
weird
took was
because
them.
even though your moniker is obviously Angry Elf, I mean this whole
Yeah.
conversation, I mean again you have a very pleasant personality and voice, at least for what you presented
Ooh.
here. So I'm trying to think this other side, but then I shouldn't be too surprised though because I was floored when I found out that Bob Ross, the painter guy,
Mhm.
it's like make happy little incidents, and nice. He
Yep.
was a drill sergeant also, which
Oh yeah.
based on if you watch those Joy of Painting shows over the years, it's hard to
Yeah.
believe that he was that guy at one time, and so
Oh,
I don't put it past anybody if he could be a drill sergeant, with
oh,
that,
yeah.
but talk about that.
When
So how was that? Did it vibe with your personality? Did it feel uncomfortable at first? You had to be
no.
someone you weren't, or it gelled very well. Go ahead.
Well, the first of all, there's many different types of drills. In fact, um, the my last uh, trio, because we work in threes.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I had a former Marine who transitioned over the Army, so he was a bulldog. There
Hmm.
was me, who was the senior, so I led the group. I was I had to transition from being the bulldog into the dad,
Hmm.
so I played more the disappointed dad, skit. But
Right.
the third guy was, he played the good cop to the retired Marine or former Marine's bad cop. And he was soft spoken, kind of quiet. He could project his voice and, be a be an asshole when he had to, but for the most part, his personality was kind of like he talked to them.
Hmm.
But so as long as you get your point across and you can mentor them, but yeah, there's points in time, absolutely. Just
Yeah.
let the hate out. Just get it all out. And
Right.
there were points in time where I would just mess those kids' lives up until I got bored. And and sometimes it's something as simple as having the wrong shoes on your feet, and that sets off all the fireworks. Everything goes downhill from there.
Mhm.
And or saying something silly as they do something wrong and they say, "Sorry, Sergeant." Oh, wait, I'm a sorry sergeant? What? And then the next thing you know, those kids are freaking
You were
dripping
just looking
buckets of
for a
sweat as
reason
I
to go after them.
ruin their lives.
Have they
Yeah.
ever like got to the point that you're literally smoking them and they break down in tears and everything?
Oh, I'm sure of it. I mean, I may not have seen it all because there were points in time where I was scuffing up 200 plus guys at once. So you can't
Mm,
see everything. You
mhm,
try, but
mhm.
you can't see everything. I've had guys try to quit, and nope, you're not quitting. Or they do, basically say, "You can't make me do anything else. I quit." And you go, "Okay, cool." And then you tell them, "Hey, it's time to line up for chow. We're going to chow." And they try to hop in line. You go, "Oh, no, 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 no. You're refusing to train. Chow's on the training schedule, so that means you're refusing to eat. You can go sit on that bench and wait for us to come back from chow."
Oh
That
man.
usually breaks them. Usually,
Wow.
usually get a guy that'll sit out one, maybe two meals with that, but they usually come back and be like, "All right, I'll train," because they want to eat.
Mhm.
So, but yeah,
Yeah.
usually missing one meal, not even, in fact, I've seen it where they were like, "Oh no, you mean I can't eat? You never mind." I changed what I said, and hops in the line and goes, "Yep, I'll train." But then I've seen kids that were the exact opposite of that. I knew had a kid in my platoon um climbing a rope. He just lost it. Lost his grip, a little bit of muscle fatigue, but way he fell, he fractured one leg and
Ooh.
what he sprained? No, he broke one leg and fractured the other. So the sad part was he was in a wheelchair for 2 months, and so he by the time he got out of that wheelchair, he was hell bent on getting out of there, and
Mhm.
the easiest way is to complete the program. And he was the most motivated guy that we had,
Wow.
um, and he graduated, and yeah, pure motivation,
Yeah.
and he took it in stride, like because he's stuck in a wheelchair. I started calling him Professor X. He's wheeling around in his wheelchair,
Yeah. Yeah.
and oh yeah, and he loved it. He goes, "Oh, I got a nickname from the drill sergeant, Professor X." I mean, they all have that, that basically that bald
Yeah.
head, anyways,
Right. Right.
because
Right.
we zero their heads.
Right.
But
So,
yeah,
two more questions for you,
loved it.
Alf. Is one,
Yeah.
how was your voice after the end of the day? Was it like shot? You couldn't talk anymore from yelling?
So I was one of those drills that everybody accused that didn't go full in the paint with screaming and stuff, but then they would see me, and yeah, I am screaming. No, I learned actually from being in a military school that you don't project your voice from your throat, you project it from your diaphragm.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I never lost my voice. There were, especially the first 72 hours is where it's all you're just hitting them constantly from sun up to sundown. From the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed, you're just screwing them up. Any opportunity you get, oh, dinner time or mealtime was the absolute best, especially the first meals in the chow hall. The lunch or the chow hall ladies knew when that was, and when they saw us coming, they're putting in earplugs because they know that the decibel level in that
Mhm.
dining hall is about to get maxed out.
Yeah.
Um, we would go, oh, the first meal it's gloves are off, full tilt. You're doing everything, and you're just me. Oh, and because they only have so much time, you've got to get over 200 people through that chow line in 30 minutes.
Ooh.
And you're going to do it by hell or high water. It's going to happen. And we made it happen every single time. Now, eventually, yes, those kids figure it out and then they get to a point where they're on autopilot, and you're just sitting there doing your thing. But oh yeah, and but no, I never lost my voice.
And my
So
last question for you is: you said
sure.
nicknames. What was your nickname during your boot camp, and why did you get it?
Well, I got my nickname was Dutch because the same drill that punched me in the face couldn't pronounce my last name. It's German. It's pronounced Deitch, but it looks like how the Germans spell Deutschland. He couldn't
Mhm.
say it,
Mhm.
and he wasn't going to say what he thought it should be pronounced. So he's like, "Screw it, we're gonna call you Dutch." So I was
Okay.
Dutch all through
So
basic
it
training.
wasn't Dutch from Predator. It wasn't like
Oh
that wasn't
no,
the
no,
inspiration.
I no way, no, I don't. I wish I looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I
No,
hear you.
unfortunately not. I mean, Arnold's what, 6 foot something? I'm
6'1",
5'5"
yeah,
on a good
two
day.
twenty. Yeah, yeah. I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear.
Oh, I'm
Awesome.
220 now, but it's not because it's
Not the
muscle.
kind of right for the 220 that you want.
Ah,
Awesome. Awesome.
no,
All right, so we've and again, just want to just acknowledge the chat. Thank you guys for having such a lively chat discussion. So again, boss man, thank you for keeping it going. Our brother Mandrell, again, we got to get you on here soon. Your story is coming up next. We definitely want to share there. Coach Ferg, who also is a former vet as well. So again, salute to you, Braxton the Snake Fiend. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Just make sure as you come in tonight, just make sure you hit the like button on both, not only here but also go
absolutely.
over to the Sparta HQ network and certainly hit the like button there as well. So we've been sharing tonight. So we talked about, okay, so obviously you were an infantryman. Obviously you were a paratrooper. You're a
Yep.
father. You're a husband. You work in private contractor. But then you have this other title of yours. You're a Jedi. Now, shout out to that. Now I'll assume that I'm the oldest guy here. So I go back to 1977. All right. So I go back when Star Wars first hit and the impact that it had. It was such a major portion of my childhood, and I had the opportunity, thanks to Pete. We went to Comic-Con last month, and I
October.
bought my first lightsaber, and I also got my first Jedi gear, whatnot. So I actually donned my first Jedi uniform
Nice.
over Halloween. But you see, like, from what I understand, you've been with this for a while. So talk about that a little bit. Where'd your fandom start? Like I said, I remember 77. That was like the game changer right there. Nobody saw anything like that, imagined anything like that. A lot of science fiction of the time. You had
Yeah.
2001: The Space Odyssey. You had some kind of, you know, different sort of like existential type of science fiction. And a lot of people say
Right.
Star Wars really isn't science fiction. It's more like space opera, not science fiction. But that being said, it changed the game so much, and we were so influenced. And you had the toy lines and the
Oh,
trading
yeah.
cards,
And if
and
you
it
pay
was
attention, some of the
yeah,
stuff you can see in his background already.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
So obviously
You
you're heavy into it.
Yeah, there's
So
some helmets hanging there. Over here, that's all for the most part Star Wars.
yeah.
So,
So talk about it. So
what?
where'd your fandom start, and how'd you get
Oh,
in the collecting and all that? So
so
talk about that.
I'm a '78 baby, so I missed seeing Star Wars in the theater when it originally came out, but
Mm-hmm.
it had to be somewhere in late '82 or '83, um, in the run up to the release for Return of the Jedi.
Right.
My parents took me to see A New Hope and Empire in the theater because back in the '80s, before everybody could had home media, the only way you could catch up is for them to put those movies back in the theater.
And mind you, and that it was a holiday tradition for many years. Christmas
Hmm.
time, it was like
Yep.
Star Wars. They put all the movies out, so we
Yep.
would go as often as we were able to go. It was like a tradition. Yeah, we got to go see Star Wars. It's after Christmas, or sometimes even Thanksgiving. They put it out again. Now it's just an
Yep.
annual thing, and then after a while, they started showing it on CBS on television
Yep.
and whatnot. Then you said mid '80s, you had the VHS and everything that changed the game as well.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
But yeah,
it was a perennial.
I've seen all the films in the theaters except for two, and those were due to deployments. And it was Revenge of the Sith and then The Rise of Palpatine. I mean,
Hmm.
Rise of Skywalker, excuse me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but yeah, and then as far as the toys go, and the other media, like so when we lived in Florida, my grandparents lived close by. So every time they came over, they brought a toy, and a lot of times it was Star Wars.
Mhm.
And at Christmas, at my birthday, it was Star Wars. And I got, I had most of the toys, and I had those toys for a while. Then unfortunately, they fell subject to garage sales because we
Mhm.
were moving all the time. So if I wasn't
Right, right.
actively playing with them, they went away. And then, there was a little bit of, for a while, Star Trek replaced Star Wars because
Mhm.
it wasn't in the forefront of the media. And then I remember in, was it nine? No, it had to be like 94, 95 when Hasbro brought back Power of the Force 2,
Mhm.
which was reintroducing the Star Wars toys to the store shelves, and that was it. The fire was reinvigorated. Um, when they released Shadow of the Empire, that
Mhm. Yeah.
media push for
Yeah.
that was normally what they did for a movie. So they did a book, comics, a video
Yeah.
game, the whole
Uh-huh.
9 yards, just without the film. I bought into that.
Yeah.
There was some great Dark Horse comics that
Dark
came
Horse
out.
Comics. That's right. That's
Yep.
right. Yep.
And the next thing you know, they're announcing that in 97 they're putting the special editions into the
Right.
theaters.
Mhm.
I was there for all three of those
Same here. Same here.
on opening night.
Same here.
On
Yeah.
opening night.
It was
On
kind of took us back because again we would stand in line even after like say
uh
even in the re-releases, and again you didn't have a ton of like megaplexes. We had 10 or 12 screens. A lot of the movie theaters
right.
had maybe one or two screens. Lines around the corner,
Yeah.
and it was like the same thing in 97 when it came out again. It was just so cool just being in an environment that took you back 20 years earlier. People are in line, they had their lightsabers, and again they weren't like the
Oh
saber
yeah.
force and all the ones they have now, but little
Yeah.
plastic ones or whatever, in full uniform. It was like a big carnival, and
Oh
we didn't
yeah.
mind waiting because okay, a movie was out. We would wait 2 or 3 movies. So again, you got there. If you were trying to get like a 2 p.m. movie, you probably weren't going to get into the 7 p.m. show because all those other
hmm
shows were booked up before then, and we didn't care. We waited up until the sun started going down before we went in there. That's how stoked we were just to relive that magic of 77. 77 was just like I said a game changer in so many ways.
I remember when I went and saw Attack of the Clones.
Hmm.
When I went and saw Attack of the Clones, I was in there, whatever the first showing was of the morning. I think it was like 9 or 10 o'clock. There I am. And I remember seeing rows of people in front of me. And you're just paying attention as you're waiting for the movie to start. And then you realize, wait, these are all these guys work together. They skipped work today to go see this movie, you
Yeah.
know? And it was, but yeah,
Dude, I
yeah,
remember skipping school for go see the Return of the Sith, episode 3. And like it
yeah,
was the first thing, like I was like I seen everybody coming in with Jedi uniform. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, these are my people.
Yeah.
That's
oh
what I
yeah,
thought.
Yeah.
yeah. In fact, that was the big letdown of being deployed in 2005, was because we thought we were going to miss seeing this movie. We're gonna have to wait till we came home, and then somebody got a bootleg copy of it on DVD or whatever it was.
Right.
It was it was either I think it was a screener copy that somebody got a hold of and put it on a DVD, but or Blu-ray or whatever you call it. Yeah. Anyways, but I remember we had a TV, a decent sized TV.
Mhm.
We had a PlayStation or Xbox so we could play the movie, and we're all crowded around this TV. And it was there was no room. Everybody was crammed in there. We had microwaved a whole mess load of popcorn. We're drinking soda, and it was, if you talked, you were probably getting your ass beat because everybody wanted to know how this movie was going to end.
Mhm.
And it was, it was almost a religious experience
Yeah.
to, um,
See, people don't realize
And-
back then bootlegs
Oh,
were a
yeah.
lot more common than now. Like
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
even
Oh,
hear
yeah.
bootleg anymore. Like
Yeah.
I remember times my cousin used to find a great copy online. Like, and the movie's not even out yet. I'm like, I can make
Yeah.
some money on this fucking thing.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
I made a few bucks off it. I'm not gonna lie. Like even
Yeah.
Eminem sold CDs. I found some great copy. Like, ooh, yeah. What they're selling for $40? I give you $20, and I only spent $5 in it. So $50 profit right there. So bootleg was very common for you guys who were deployed. Like that's the only way you could watch it. Now over the streaming services, don't you wish you had a streaming service back then? Probably.
Yeah, a lot of people are now out of business. We
Yeah.
used to have in my
Uh,
barber shop when I used to go to the barber shop. Guy would come in every week, and he would
Mhm.
have his bootleg movies or whatever, DVDs or whatever, and
Yep.
and that's a lot of guys got put out of business with streaming.
Yeah. I mean,
So
they would have when we were in Iraq and Afghanistan, they would have the the markets, the bazaar, or excuse me, the bazaars, and you would get, you could go get a bunch of whole stuff, but dudes would just go straight to the movie guy and sit there and go through what he had, and sometimes
Mhm.
you get some really good stuff, and then
Yeah.
it's sometimes it was crap. And
Yeah.
for instance, the first Transformers movie, I used to jokingly say I only saw 3/4 of the movie. They're like, "Oh, would you miss the end?" No, whoever filmed it only captured 3/4 of the
Quarters of the
screen.
shot.
I
So
heard
the
the
whole
entire
movie.
movie. I only
Wow.
saw about 3/4 of the screen.
He was like with his cell
Dang.
phone, like
Yeah, probably
Yeah,
in the theater
that's
or
exactly
whatnot.
what
Just
it
got
was.
it was, like I hated when I get those kind of movies. It used to know the shit out of me.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
like
but
we're
yeah,
God
Star
almost
Wars, it never ended because I've always collected toys to much of my wife's chagrin.
Mm.
But yeah, and I don't know how many. Don't even ask me to count how many figures I've got, and don't ask me how much this stuff is worth because I don't want to know.
Well, actually, speaking of that now, Pete, you shared a story with me leading up to the show
Yeah.
that again you were able to leverage some of your collection, or was that your honeymoon, or was it something to that effect, or what was
remember you were telling
the
me you sold
Oh,
percentage of
oh,
your collection to go on
no,
your
oh,
vacation.
yeah. So no, earlier this summer, the stuff that I didn't have actively displayed in my collection,
Mhm.
I went to my friend's toy shop that he owns and sold that stuff to him. And the money that I got from it, my wife and I were going to Las Vegas for our 15th wedding anniversary this
Oh,
past
nice,
July,
nice.
and I had overheard her make a comment on the phone. She was talking to one of her friends on the phone, and she said, "Oh, when we go to check in for the flight, if first class is available, I'm gonna make an attempt to upgrade." And I said, "You know, I, John, my friend, gave me what was it? It was close to 2 grand for all the stuff I had."
Wow.
Yeah, so I took 1,500 of it for the trip, and 500, yeah, about 500 of it was for spending cash, so we had
Mhm.
cash on hand, and
Yeah, yeah.
the rest of it went to upgrading us to first class.
Nice.
And the intent was to surprise her when we got to the airport, but she we have a horrible time keeping secrets, especially surprises. It's really difficult, and so um, she got it out of me, not intentionally, but it was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I know what it was. She asked me where all the money went. She knew I
Mm.
sold the stuff. She asked me where did the money go? How
Right,
much did you get? I was like,
right.
don't worry about it. That's not your that was my stuff I sold, not your concern. She goes, no, I want to know. And I said, okay, well, the money's most of it's spent. All right. And she goes, well, you're going to tell me what you spent it on. I'm like, no, I'm not. And then she warned it out of me, and it was like, okay, fine. They're spending money, and the rest of it is upgraded us to first class. And I left a little bit for me to for store credit at John's shop, and she was like, "Wait, we're first class?" I said, "Yeah, first class to and from." And yep, after that it was so.
Hey,
Um,
yeah, I'm sure you're in some brownie points there for sure.
oh yeah,
Now I have a
So-
I want a serious question from you. Not serious, more a comment, and you can't share with us. We're down to the last 15 minutes. I need to hear two most embarrassing stories between you and CQ. What the hell you guys used to do? Like, give me some juicy information. Give
Okay,
me most
I
two
got
embarrassing stories.
I got a good one for you. So, when we were in Italy and we came back from our deployment to Iraq, the long and short of it is they had too many guys living in the barracks. We were overcrowded,
Mhm.
bad.
Mhm.
So, me being an older, mature guy that already had a car, they let me move into the basically the junior enlisted apartments that were off post. They call it the BEQs. Basic enlisted quarters. And so what it was a small one man apartment. All right. So I got it. I had less than a week, and then I was going to a ranger preparation course, going to make an attempt at ranger school, a big leadership school for the army. So I barely got my stuff into this apartment before I had to leave for several weeks. Well, I said to CQ, "Hey, you can stay here. You can mess around here. Set me up, like clean up, basically unpack me. You can hang out here, but unpack all my stuff." And so he did. And I get back, he picks me up when I got back, and all this stuff brings me back to my apartment and was like, "Hey, yeah, we left you some stuff. We got you some welcome home gifts, and there's a DVD in the DVD player for you. Don't watch it now, watch it later." And I'm like, "All right, whatever." This motherfucker had went off and got dog porn. And we're not talking about dog on dog. No, we're talking about the dogs freaking screwing the chick type stuff. And that was, I sit there, I go turn that on, and I'm like, what is, oh, that's oh, click. It was immediately on the phone going, CQ, what the? And he's like, "I got you." And the thing of it is, in
Oh
Europe,
my gosh.
you can go find that stuff almost anywhere.
Hey, that's
And
true, actually.
and so, yeah, that was CQ's like, "Gotcha, motherfucker."
Wow.
Like, okay, give me a second one now.
Oh,
And you cannot
so
tell
when
me
I
that story about him filling up a tank with water bags, and I know about it already.
no, I got a better one. I got a
Oh
better one.
God!
So CQ got to Italy about 2 months before I did because I got injured in airborne school, and so I got um delayed by about 2 months. So when I get there, CQ's already got a lay of the land and knows everything. Well, um, there was what we call barracks rats. These chicks that kind of float around the barracks and kind of get passed from guy to guy and whatever.
Mhm.
It's an army thing. It doesn't really happen much anymore, but at the time, and CQ kind of set me up with a friend of a friend, and she, not realizing what it was. Yes, he set me up with I forget her name. If he was here, he would tell me. But yeah, I kind of got set up with one of the girls that is on rotation, as it were. Um, yeah, I am familiar with barracks rats.
Now I know
Unfortunately,
you are. I'm just saying. I'm asking some of the guys here, Brad, because I know a lot of these guys are ex-military or whatnot. So this is like
yeah,
the wrestling
I'm
ring,
looking at the
the
comments
ring
that
rat. So this is like the wrestling rats. I mean the barrack rats.
yeah,
So
all barracks rats. Yeah, and so yeah, he set me up with one of them, and um, it it ended mutually. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. But
okay.
afterwards, I was like, "God damn it, CQ, God damn you!" But yeah, I mean, for the most part, we would just drink and do stupid stuff. Probably the most nerdy thing we did is when Spider-Man 2 came out.
Mhm.
It had 3 showings in Italy on the base movie theater, and CQ and I went and saw all 3 showings. I mean, that's probably the
Wow.
nerdiest thing we
And
did.
just in case anybody asks, we're talking about Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2.
Tobey Maguire, yeah,
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Spider-Man 2 in 2004.
Yeah.
In fact, I saw that movie too many times in theater. Um,
you probably know it by
yeah,
word by word.
Indeed,
Yeah,
I'm sure.
well, not anymore, but at the time, yeah. Um, but yeah, CQ and I, the the stupid stuff that we would get ourselves into. Um,
Mm,
yeah, and it was fun times. That guy seriously, day one army until the day that he was medevaced out of Afghanistan. We were almost inseparable.
mm.
I mean, and talk about like a real army friend. That's somebody that he's in the top 5 of my army friends.
Mhm.
And
And it's funny
fortunately,
you
like I
say
said,
that because me and him are best friends, like you and him are.
yeah.
And he has told me stories like when you guys got separated and he came back in a unit and he thought he got rid of his name CQ, and you walk in and go CQ, and he goes, "You motherfucker."
Oh yeah. So
You
the
know, you can
same
say it
drill
better than
sergeant,
I can.
the same drill sergeant that gave me the nickname Dutch started calling him CQ because his last name's Carasquillo. Like
Right,
that's
right.
it's a mouthful.
Mhm,
And so he disliked it all through basic training, all through airborne school. And then, yeah, like I said, I got injured. He had about a 2 month separation from me, gets to Italy ahead of me. And everybody's calling him Carasquillo or Mike or whatever they were calling him. Well, we linked back up. Well, we linked up in Italy. We were hanging out for a couple weeks. Then he went forward to Iraq, and I followed like I don't know, maybe a 2, 4 weeks later. But it was really when we got to Iraq and we ended up on the same fire team, which was ironic. But yes, exactly how it is. We walk into the little platoon area, and I see him. I'm like, ah, because I was so happy to see a friendly face, and he's like, "Oh, you motherfucker." Oh, and it caught on just like that. Everybody's like, "Well, wait, what? OCQ?" And nope,
and
it was done.
it
It's like
came
I
back,
brought
yeah,
in a hot iron with the letters C and Q on it
and
and just
branded them.
placed it right, branded him right on his forehead.
There you go,
And
He
it's
there
stuck
you
probably
ever
go.
still want to
since.
kill you to this day for that one.
Yep.
Hey, use it, and it's obviously it's working for him, so,
Yeah.
I have one question as we,
Sure.
start to wind down the show, and again, thank you so much for taking, your time out.
Oh,
I really
absolutely. This is
appreciate when you
great.
guys come on. Um, Part of the show's title is the gray area, and we're just the title for the show came up because we understand that we live in a world that's more complex than that. A lot of people come in and think the world is black and white, and really
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of common area. There's a gray area that certainly links us as individuals and as people. We see it certainly in today's world and the country and the politics and everything. And one question I'd like to ask, especially for the military guys, what was there a gray area in your life from the time you sort of enlisted, from all the experiences that you went through, that you might have thought some things were pretty much black and white, at least that was as was said. But now that you reflect back, what
Oh yeah.
is the gray area that you found that still you remember and you still cling to this day?
It's it's the realization like I joined the army thinking I was gonna be kind of like a hero. I was gonna do the virtuous, save the day type stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
then you slowly realize, especially being infantry, you slowly realize that you have to do bad things to those bad guys. There's no
Mm-hmm.
there's no kids gloves. You to win this fight, you almost have to play as dirty as they do.
Mm-hmm.
And one one story that really personifies that was on my third deployment. We were in Iraq, and some American soldiers had disappeared. And earlier in that day, they found their ID cards
Mm-hmm.
um, with some in a bad guy stronghold,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And anyways, they spun us up to go attempt to look for them, and we went out um, into this area where they thought they were potentially there. So we fly in by helicopter, and my platoon splits up into 2 groups. Well, our interpreter went with the other group, and we run up on this house. We pull out the father, the mother, and a couple of children. And my platoon leader, the lieutenant, is got the pictures and he's trying to do the pointy talkie thing, trying to break the language barrier. And it's getting nowhere. And the guy kept saying certain phrases in Arabic that just we'd heard way too many times, and I was hell bent on bringing these guys in. And this guy said, I swear, I don't know where they're at. And I'm like, wrong answer. And I grab him by the collar of his shirt and I deck him. I said, where are they? And he's like, I swear, I don't know where they're at. And I'm like, wrong answer. And that went on for probably about 4 or 5 iterations where I bloodied his face.
Mm.
And the platoon leader and one of the other soldiers had to pull me off of him. And as we were leaving, because the platoon leader was like, we're getting nowhere, and you just kind of screwed that up, dude. Like, and I'm like, I don't care. And I'm screaming at him. I'm like, we find out they're here and you knew I'm coming back, I'm murdering you. And it was just straight hate coming straight at, because I was hell bent to find these guys. I wanted to be able to bring them home. And, the rest of that trip, it was, we were doing what we had to do to make an attempt to find them. And then eventually, we were rotated out. Probably about 4 or 5 days later, we didn't find them. And then
Mm.
unfortunately, they found their bodies, a week, maybe 2 weeks later, several
Mm.
miles down the Tigris River.
Mm.
And they'd been executed. It was evident they had been executed. And, but it's just, that is something that, and that's just one example. That time period, at least for me, was very dark because I went from one deployment to another almost back to back, no break. And um, kind of my life was falling apart at that point.
Mm.
My home life, my army
Mm.
life was excelling, and we did some stuff that we shouldn't have done.
Mm.
And anybody that was there during the surge has very similar stories.
Mm.
And it was basically like we were doing the stuff to complete the mission, and it didn't matter what we did. But
Mm.
on the flip side, I did some in hindsight was pretty stupid, but it needed to be done.
Mm.
Uh, we came across a family that had been taken by some of the bad guys. Um, the senior leadership had decided to drop some bombs on them instead of let us do the job. Found out that this building had been collapsed on this family. We started pulling the rubble out, and when we realized that there were family members in there that were KIA, but there were others that were still alive, but we needed to get in there. I ripped off all my body armor and doffed my equipment and just jumped in there and started pulling people out and started helping the medics treat them. And my my section sergeant did the right thing by just picking up my equipment, putting it in the truck so it didn't get lost, and let me work, and just made sure that nothing bad happened to me because I was the idiot that just took off all his body armor. So
Mm.
I was free to work.
Right.
And I don't know how long we worked. All I remember is when everything ended, I had that you ever had that such an adrenaline high when you come off of it, you get really nauseous and you kind of dry heaving and stuff because you haven't
Mm.
eaten in several hours, haven't drank it
Wow.
water for
Yeah.
several
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
The medics were really concerned with me. They're like, dude, you need to go sit down and drink water because I'm just sitting there holding on the side of a
Mm.
truck, dry
Mm.
heaving. They're like, yep, you're coming off that adrenaline high, dude. Just go sit over there and just let it happen because it's going to be rough. Because I've been operating on adrenaline probably for 4 to 6 hours because we
Wow.
worked into the early dawn hours, evacuating people and getting them out. And it was just one of those things where you know, we had to do it. And that's the only way I can see in my mind I can justify how I brought myself back from doing some of those dark things.
Mm. Mm.
But yeah, it's the realization that you want to be on the light. I'll equivocate it to Jedi terms.
Sure. Sure.
You want to be on the light side, but coming to the realization that you have to turn to the dark side
Mm.
to, you know, complete the mission, and thus you meet in the middle and end up being in the gray.
Wow. That's terrific.
So
That is terrific.
That is a
Well,
very expiring story, Rob. To be honest with you.
oh yeah,
absolutely.
Now, most people, including myself, or I think Rob too, about Paul too, that won't take their armor off and like, hey, let's go in there. Like, it takes a different kind of man to jump right in there and just do what they need to do.
Facts.
So, man, seriously.
Facts. Well, again, this has been lovely, and again, certainly we look forward to even having you back for another episode. And again, on
it
the
was
show,
great being here.
We're looking to bring on again different people, different backgrounds. And we love talking to the military guys, but we like to open it up to people from all different types of backgrounds, because everyone has a story, everyone has a perspective, and everyone has a gray area which they'd be able to find. And one of the things that me and Peter, obviously, we kind of spin off of just about ethnicities. I'm a black man, he's white. And so we kind of find that gray, and we just find just in the cultural exchange, talking about what it means to be Greek, what it means to be Black American and whatnot, we find those similarities that at the end of the day, we're human beings. And we're sharing this human experience. We may flex it a little bit differently. We may use different terminology or whatnot, but at the end of the day, as human beings, we all want a lot of the same things. Faith, family, a sense of belonging, a sense of being, our fandom or whatnot. Again, humanity wants that. And then also to have a proper conversation, because again, especially in this political environment we're in, you realize people getting split over stuff or whatever. And it's like, how can we come understanding and recognizing and appreciating our differences? How can we have a respectable conversation? And so certainly that's really at the genesis of the show. Again, I got to thank Peter, because this was his brainchild, certainly to bring me on into the space and whatnot. And I've had a blast in doing it. It's true, man. This is your baby. And he said, Paul, he's like, Paul, I want you to do this with me. So I was like, I said, sure. And it's certainly been a delight. I've been edified in so many discussions that we've had, and especially the guests that we had. So we want to continue bringing this content here on the BMU Network. So again, I'll reiterate again, certainly as you leave, make sure you hit the like button on this channel as well as on the Spartans before you leave, and make sure that you spread the word, pass these conversations along, and again, show people how to have a respectable debate and conversation. But Peter, any last minute things before we close the show? Oh, before we do that, Angry Elf, again, talk about yourself. Where can people find you, your content and whatnot? Talk about your handles, and just give all your information.
So I'm a semi-professional co-host. I don't have any channels or anything, but on Tuesday nights on WTF Nation Radio, any of its social media platforms, Facebooks, the YouTubes, the X's, the Twitches. I don't know where we're at. We're all over the place nowadays. But Tuesday nights at 8:00 on WTF Nation. If I'm not there, it's Mad Mike. And I think this weekend this Tuesday coming up, it's me and Mad Mike again, because CQ is going off to see another movie without us. So we're going to be there talking about the pop culture news of the week, so you don't have to go digging around for it. So, yep, that's where you can catch me. Otherwise, yeah.
Awesome. Again,
you guys, you can also go back to my channel to check out if Anakin was the chosen one. If Rob was on that was a fun episode we did.
Yeah,
I'm gonna hang out, Operation Hangout of my channel. But Rob, I gotta say, you're definitely coming back. I know you are. I know your buddies. I know everything about you now. So if you don't come back, I'll hunt you down. So you're coming back for part 2.
Well, the only reason if I'm not able to come back, it's probably because I'm either in New Mexico where the internet sucks, or I don't know. Maybe I got abducted by aliens or something.
But we will work around. I know it took us a while to get this show dialed in. It was like timing. We had to get right on the money, and when we got it in, we got it in.
And it's well worth the wait. Yeah. But again, I've had a blast. And again, thank you, audience, for being with us this evening. And as we close the show, so Iron Mist for Angry Elf, Iron Mr. Bennett. He is.
This is Sparta!
aka Peter, aka This is the gray area. You guys have a great week. Take care. God bless. We'll see you next time. Good night.
All right, guys, another one in the books. Another great episode on the Black Man Unfiltered Network. Listen, we're doing the thing over here. So, guys, do me a favor. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button. Also, if you want to donate to the channel, which helps the channel, hit your boy Cash App. It's scrolling right here, right there, at the bottom of the screen, and support the channel. But we're happy that you're here, and we look forward to seeing you on every episode. So hit the notification button so you know when we go live. Thank you again, guys, for watching. We out.